With the way the internet has responded to everything Nintendo has given us this week, does it just prove that we can't have nice things?
I'm Back Rolls.
And I'm Mac Fraser, and we're the Nintendo Nerds.
We're a comedy and gaming duo here to help you craft and play your way to a better day.
We met in the not-too-distant past during some spirited online Mario Kart, and as it turns out, we share a love for art, gaming, and all things Nintendo.
And we want to share our nerdy knowledge with you.
So stick around, because in today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about the two Nintendo Directs that we received last week for Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, as well as gloss over the interesting Super Nintendo World trailer. So yeah, last week was a bit of a heavy week for Directs. I don't think that we got exactly the Directs that we were quite expecting, but there was a lot of information that we received.
We had so much that we ended up deciding that we were going to push back our second episode of You Should Play This, because we only release one episode a week because we're humans with jobs and we like to have these conversations, but we decided there was so much going on that we should have a little bit of a chat about everything that Nintendo's thrown at us, because it's been a week of a lot of content, actually. We've been speculating and we got quite a bit of a roadmap for Pokemon and for Smash.
So yeah, I guess to start with Pokemon, we got a Direct last week that was, 20 minutes?
Something like that. It was quite a bit of beefy content for a lot to come.
And we found out that we're getting two DLC expansions to the game, one in June of 2020 and one near the end of the year, sometime in the fall, where we're going to be introduced to two new areas that are kind of like the wild area, the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. And it looks like we're also getting new exclusive rivals for each version. We got Clara, the Poison type for Sword, and Avery, the Psychic type for Shield.
Yeah, in addition to that, there's plenty of new gameplay experiences that they were plugging and features with both expansions, such as the Cooperative Dynamax dens. I'm excited to see what that may offer. I'm also glad to hear that you don't necessarily have to purchase it in order to participate in these things. You can invite your friends in online play.
Well, and I think that that's a smart way to do things, because in all honesty, not everyone is going to buy the DLC, but it still gives people who didn't an opportunity to enjoy some of the newer content, especially like the new additions to the Pokemon, of which there are slated to be 200, I think, over both expansions. So we're looking at about 100 in each. They announced that Slowpoke, the Galarian one. So I'm kind of hoping that we're going to see more Galarian variants, and maybe even some new region-specific Pokemon.
Yeah, it would be nice to see some new Galarian Pokemon, some fresh things to come with DLC content.
Looks like we're going to be getting lots of legendary Pokemon returning too. We got some artwork for Kanto legendaries that appear to have different typings and pretty spectacular designs. I think they all look really great.
You know, I can't get out of my head, as soon as one person online said that the Articuno looked a little bit like Frozone from The Incredibles. I think they're great, but I can't get that out of my head. That's probably the only Pokemon I'm going to name, you know?
Oh my goodness. It's like when you mishear the words to a song, where someone says this is what they think the lyrics in the song are, and then for the rest of time all you hear is that.
Yep. It's like or when a celebrity has some kind of weird crushed thumb or strange ears, and you're like, "Oh no, that's all I can see."
Alert, alert, alert.
But I really appreciate the new designs of the Kanto birds. That seems like a lot of fun. I'm a little worried about just how many legendaries are being introduced back into the Pokemon meta, because a lot of competitive people are saying that is worrisome as far as what that will do for competitive play.
The truth is, I don't know how much it's going to affect it. We've seen it in the past. I got to tell you, I spent a decent amount of time playing Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the remakes of the Game Boy Advance ones, and there were so many Pokemon in those games, because there were these hidden islands that you could fly to with Latios and Latias that, depending on the day, different Pokemon would appear in these dens kind of thing, and the amount of legendaries there was quite high. And you know what, if there was even a little bit of a competitive scene kind of happening back then like there is now, I don't think that it stands to make a lot of difference.
That's a fair point. You've played more of the online competitive Pokemon than I have, so that's a very fair point.
And even then, I think that there's ways to play with Pokemon and give them movesets where you can work around those legendaries. It's just a matter of figuring out in new and exciting ways to do so.
Certainly, and the Dynamax Den exploration sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. As I already said, I'm glad that you can invite a friend that doesn't necessarily already have bought it, because we have our thoughts on that as well, that another $30 per expansion, if you have to have double purchase, that's quite a tough pill to swallow.
I agree with that. Like, it's especially if you double down and bought the double pack to begin with. Like, the fact that you spent, first of all, Pokemon games used to be, almost the price of this DLC. And now we've already bought a full price game. And then in order to get both DLC packs, if you bought both games, you're basically paying for another full price game.
Exactly. That's not a pill I can currently swallow in my household. My partner plays a lot of Pokemon, and I play plenty of games. So I'm going to let him pick up the expansion, and I'm just going to ride those coattails. Like, get me a Squirtle!
Yeah, just leech off of him. Get whatever he can. And you know what? You play with other people with the opposite version of you too. So beyond him, I think we've got a lot of opportunities to help you complete that Pokedex.
I'll settle for nothing but Gigantamax Blastoise.
I'm on board with that. So some of the things that we kind of chatted about a little bit. The wild areas that are coming, like these new 2 areas, are nice. I think it's good, like, next step in terms of kind of DLC for this game. But given that the original, like the game upon release didn't quite feel finished like we expected it to, like there were some routes near the end of the game that were just very short and there was nothing in them, maybe like a patch or 2 of grass. I kind of like wonder if maybe they should have put a little bit more time into that, because it just kind of feels like they might be filling the holes in the Galarian map with this DLC with content that probably should have already been.
Yeah, you and I agree on that. Who knows how this scheduling played out in terms of production, but it would have been really nice to see all of these wild areas all at once. It would have been lovely to have these from the jump, and maybe they wouldn't necessarily have as many Pokemon. And then when these DLC got released, it's new events, new rivals, new Pokemon, new costumes. I'd definitely be into purchasing something like that, but when it's to get additions to the map that felt like they should have been there is a little disappointing. I have to agree.
And I know that we're not on far opposite ends of the fence, but like, we kind of sit a little bit differently on opinion on this. I definitely agree with all of these things. That being said, I probably will still buy the DLC for myself, because the thing is, it's more of a collectathon, and that's kind of the thing that I enjoy the most about these games.
Very true. You're getting more of the same, and people seem to be upset about that. And it's like, that's what you bought the game for.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you have to enjoy the things that are offered, right? Like, people said that the Pokedex was a little small. Well, we're gonna have, I think, with 600, that gives us about 2/3 of the existing national dex, because I think the national dex is somewhere around 890 right now.
Yes, that's a 50% increase of what you already have, and it took me about 100 hours to get the entire Pokedex this time. So there you go. That's another additional 50-ish hours of gameplay to collect another round of Pokemon.
Well, and I'm sure that we're going to have events coming back too with more more Gigantamax Pokemon, because they seem to be swapping them every few weeks. It's like it started with the Gigantamax Snorlax, and then we had the Lapras, and now we've got the Alcremie, I think. And who knows, we might see new Gigantamax forms released after the DLCs as well.
Yes, and I may eventually get wooed into purchasing the DLC further down the line, just because it seems like this Pokemon version, this iteration in the franchise, is offering up something they haven't really before, which is a game as a service, which is offering you reasons to jump back into the game. I'm glad to see that this is a departure from rather than seeing something like an Ultra Sword and Ultra Shield.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it is genuinely the next step for Nintendo, because, with development times kind of being longer on games these days, like before, where you might see a Pokemon every 2 or 3 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. Now that games are so much bigger and they require so much more effort to create, I think that it really was about the time that Nintendo started looked at supporting their games for a little bit longer.
Just give us 6-on-6 battles already.
Yes, agreed. 100%. You build your teams in 6s, not in 3s. So I think that's enough for Pokemon right now. We've talked about that at length. We're going to go in chronological order here of kind of the way that things happened last week. And so I think it's time to talk about that interesting Super Nintendo World preview trailer.
Yeah, the announcement trailer was a little bit weird. It kind of feels like Nintendo's advertising from about 10 years ago.
You know, people used to really see Nintendo as a kiddie company in the industry and didn't really pay much attention to them. And, you know, truthfully, I think it was an issue that stemmed from the way they marketed their products. Then they really diversified their offerings, I would say, kind of in the later years of the Wii U and the first few years of the Switch, assisting with projects like Bayonetta, and then adding things like The Witcher 3 and Skyrim to Switch's library.
Yeah. It's clear that now we have a game. Well, Nintendo has always had some mature titles, but it feels like the Switch has offered more of that than ever before. And this announcement just seems to cater to one segment of their audience again, which is the younger demographic. And this is puzzling because many Nintendo fans have been playing their games and buying their consoles for many years now, and the audience is a lot broader than only the young demographic they seem to reach for with this. And frankly, young audiences watching this on YouTube in America don't have the money to buy a ticket to Japan.
No, definitely not. And, like, based on, you know, the preview that they gave us and even some of the concept art that kind of came before, it seems like Nintendo World is really leaning heavily on the Mario universe. And Nintendo's library is so much more than that. And I just think that if they don't find a way to include other franchises, it's a bit of a missed opportunity.
Well, what we might be looking at is something like a Magic Kingdom scenario where you have different off-branching neighborhoods. Mario is the flagship, the flagpole franchise. There's a big flagpole right in the middle of Super Nintendo World.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the core of it, and then off to the left, you might have Yoshi's Island, or so there may be opportunities like that.
Well, and that's the thing. I guess you gotta start somewhere, and so who knows what's to come after that.
Yeah. So, building an amusement park is a long and expensive process, so we'll see just how well received it is when people go, I believe, next summer?
Yeah, I think that's the plan.
Oh, goodness. That time flies. That's going to come right out of nowhere.
Oh, yes, it certainly is.
So, all right, that's a little bit of that trailer. Lastly, in our announcements was the most recent. We got Byleth in Smash. Well, I personally said if it was a Pokemon, I was going back to bed, and it was not a Pokemon. To be honest, I did almost fall back asleep when I was getting the introduction into Fire Emblem, a series I've played for years, but you had to go to work. You didn't get to watch the announcement live, correct?
No, I didn't, and I'll be honest, I did not sit down for the whole 40 minutes either. When I got to it, yesterday I think was when I watched it, it was, I kind of skipped through the 40 minutes in about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Just because I hit the bullet points, and I'll be honest, like, I'm sure we've talked about Fire Emblem and how I have not played it before, and you know what, it's not a bad offering. I don't think personally for myself it was the one that I expected, and I will just say that I did watch the whole 2-minute introduction of the character into Smash, and I felt that it fell a bit flat for me. Like, some of the other character announcements were really exciting, like especially like the Banjo one, and this one just kind of was like it just happened.
Yeah, the trailer didn't necessarily feel as dynamic or cinematic as the ones we've received in the past. Certainly not compared to Hero or Banjo. Those were definitely, or Ridley for that matter. We've had some really great cinematic trailers. And to use the models from Fire Emblem, the game, felt a little bit strange because they don't have as much motion. They don't have as much emotion to them. And Byleth doesn't have as much emotion as a lot of the characters. Three houses. The moveset, I think, looks cool, but I do wish it had been Edelgard or any of the Three Houses leaders, but particularly Edelgard. She's a badass who swings an axe. There are just tons of characters in the series that don't have the blue anime hair that you could make a case for.
Yeah, it just seems to happen that all the Fire Emblem characters that find their way into Smash also find the same box of hair dye.
They all went to Manic Panic. I mean, but to be perfectly fair, all the DLC characters were given the same amount of fanfare about their series, so Sakurai did give Fire Emblem some time. And this is actually only the second Fire Emblem character that's been introduced in Smash Ultimate. The only other one is the Echo Fighter Chrom, and let's be honest, if you ever spend any time in the forums, Chrom is kind of memed online as the poor unfortunate Chrom. Like, everything bad happens to a Chrom main. Fire Emblem might necessarily need a character that can actually whoop someone's butt this time around.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Well, I'm just glad to see this as a character that finally feels representative of the weapon variety that you have in Fire Emblem. Byleth is not the coolest representation of that, but I'm just going to use the red costume, and I'm going to pretend that Edelgard got in.
Hey, and that's totally fine. But I would agree with you on that. I think that a lot of the other, Fire Emblem characters lean pretty heavily on their swords. But at least here, there's a little bit more variety. We're seeing a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see what the character plays like when it's finally released at the end of January.
Another spinning air attack. Your favorite.
Oh, that seems that's another one of those things that just seems to that is all over this release of Smash is those spinning neutral airs. Oh my goodness, they are just, you can't escape them. You just can't.
Nope. And I mean, I'm a Pac-Man main, so I have a spinning neutral air. I'm cool with it.
Of course you are. There's some people online saying that they would have liked to have seen other characters from Three Houses being able to switch between Claude, Eldegard, and Dimitri, like the Pokemon trainer, for example. It really would have been cool and interesting and dynamic and a different way to represent the series. Did you see the level?
Yeah. I think it looks pretty cool. Changes around, a lot of stuff breaks. I wish when it changed, it didn't do that gigantic shift up, like the Tower of Terror ride at Disney, or if you're old like us, it's the Guardians of the Galaxy ride now. But it's got an interesting level. I think it's got a lot of really cool dynamics to it.
Aesthetically, I find it pretty pleasing, so we're gonna have to see. I'm hoping that there isn't too much movement in that, because that was the one downfall of the Banjo level for me, is that it just too much spinning and moving, and it was really hard to focus on the action that was actually going on. As far as the other stuff that we got told about here, so this pack of DLC Mii costumes, I have to tell you, I think it's really strong. I really do think that these ones that they picked, Ubisoft, 2 Mega Man from Capcom, and Cuphead. I think Cuphead is definitely the shining star in the 5, because Cuphead has just had this meteoric rise to success, and it just seems to be a game that so many people love, and it's cool. I think that we're getting a music track with that as well.
Absolutely. I find Cuphead very inspirational in its game design and in its art direction, and I'm thrilled to see it as a Mii fighter rather than an assist trophy, because I don't think we're going to get any new assist trophies at this point. It doesn't seem like something that's going to be part of the package or part of the new wave of DLC. So I'm glad to see it being a character that I can actually play as, because I think it's a tremendous game of the past few years that deserves a bit of recognition.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think that we're going to be getting any more gameplay, new gameplay elements or anything in this, in terms of maybe new items or anything, because I'm pretty sure after they did the home run bat, when they brought the home run competition back, I think they said that was it, which is kind of unfortunate. But I guess you know what, you can't really be reaching for assist trophies when you're still trying to fill your roster. One of the things I told you prior to recording this is that, you know what, I was actually quite happy to see the rabbit costume come in as for the Mii costume for the Mii players, because
so you can breathe a sigh of relief.
I was kind of worried that was a character that might have actually made it into Smash as its own thing, and I wasn't really on board with that. But I feel like Rabbids has had enough success, especially with their Ubisoft's collaborations with Nintendo, with Kingdom Battle, that I think that the representation is warranted. But I just don't think it was warranted in the form of a brand new character.
Yes, Altair is also Assassin's Creed is a very cool Mii costume, and 2 Mega Man. I got to see Mega Man.exe. We previously talked about that a long time ago in games we'd like to see revived, about how I love Mega Man Battle Network. So I'm really happy to see Mega Man X and Mega Man.exe. Those were really cool.
I'll be honest, my first thought, because I did actually watch the shortened Mii costumes trailer in its entirety. When I saw that Battle Network Mega Man was making his intro, I figured you'd be happy with that one, because I know you've always been a fan of those games.
I was super pleased.
And I guess finally, we had spoken about the fact that before this, about how many more DLC characters are we going to get once this first Fighters pack is done, because we had kind of been given a heads up that more were coming. And I think you and I had kind of collectively settled on 3. We figured 3 might be the magic number. I never would have expected 6. I wouldn't have. And that really leaves a lot of opportunity for who's to come.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. I'm very thrilled to see that. And You know, everyone that expected a third-party character in this slot, congratulations. We've got 6 more opportunities for something like that. And with 2 years down the line, some of these maybe previously thought to be unobtainable characters might actually be, because we've got lots of time to work out those kind of deals. We could get people who are really bananas in this lineup.
I have to be honest, I know that I have talked about this a few times throughout our videos, but, you know, given now that we see that Fire Emblem Three Houses has come out and, you know, they got a representative in Smash, and Sakurai's kind of reasoning for Rex or someone from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 not making its way into the game was that, you know, that game kind of came to Nintendo a little too late after, you know, the initial roster for Smash Ultimate was decided upon. Well, I'm kind of hoping that this is going to give us an opportunity now to maybe revisit that and to see either Rex or Pyra or Mythra make their way into Smash. I think a cool mechanic for Pyra and Mythra, because they're technically the same person, but you can flip back and forth between the two, would almost be like we had already talked about with the Fire Emblem characters and the Pokemon characters, that maybe you could switch back and forth between the two of them and they would offer slightly different gameplay styles. But yeah, I'm hoping that that is a character that we can revisit, because we said in one of our previous videos, I'd like to see some more specific Nintendo representation in the characters to come. I think that we have celebrated a good portion of third parties, new and old, and I think at least for like half, maybe, or maybe even 4 of the 6, I'd like to see Nintendo characters, primarily Nintendo IPs.
Half of them would be great. I think maybe 50-50 might be a realistic expectation if this is the last round of Smash, you know? Who knows how long they expect this system to keep going. They previously, Nintendo has said that they want the system to last 6 years, 7 years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we may have a Switch Pro coming out, which may be playing the same title. So who knows? We may experience a Wave 3, and Sakurai may just never take a vacation in his life ever again.
Oh my goodness, that man needs to take a break.
Please.
So, kind of coming off of that and talking about Sakurai and him needing to take a break, we have had some discussions about just kind of the rhetoric that's kind of been taking place online over these past couple of days.
Now, this is the first time we've really used our Twitter account to browse the reactions of gamers around the time of a Smash character reveal. So, while some people did the expected blue hair anime memes, it's really disappointing to see people cross the line and extend physical threats of petitions to have Sakurai fired, and just overall awful language. To put it simply, y'all need to grow up.
Let's be honest, no one's really forcing you to buy downloadable content, and if you're unhappy with this fifth character, then maybe it's an opportunity for you to revisit whether or not you're going to buy the next wave of DLC. Instead of buying the whole pack together before any of the characters are even announced, why not just buy them a la carte?
Now, this is something that's relatively new to us, we know, and it's not new to the internet. As we've always said, though, we make an effort to practice positivity and also offer our honest opinions what we think of the video games we talk about.
It's important to realize that the people behind these games work really hard to provide us with countless hours of gameplay to enjoy, and the amount of hours that we play these games really pales in comparison to the amount of hours put in by a development team bringing us these experiences.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, we're getting a lot more content for 2 of the biggest Nintendo Switch games on the market. Pokemon is getting support for at least another year, and Smash Bros. Is getting new content until the end of 2021. This is definitely new territory for Nintendo, as they've never provided this kind of DLC support for games gone by.
We've definitely got things that we like about these announcements and things that just kind of make us say, meh. We think that this kind of ongoing support is definitely the right step for Nintendo. Games take longer to make than they used to, so instead of waiting a year or 2 extra for the next Pokemon game, we get to continue exploring new areas of a world that we've already built a connection to.
How are you feeling about all of the announcements last week? Will you be buying them? We definitely want to know, so share your opinions in the comment section below, or message us on Twitter or Instagram.
Thank you so much for watching. For more nerdy content, please make sure to click that subscribe button.
As always, we hope you leave this video ready to pick up a Pro Controller, a paintbrush, or a pen. I'm Backrolls.
And I'm Mac Fraser, and this has been the Nintendo Nerds.